Good morning, students. Hope you all are doing fine, keeping yourself safe. Previous class we were discussing the topic of flowcharts. The chapter for which we are discussing here is problem solving methodology. So we will be discussing the different topics of problem solving methodology. Previous class I started explaining flowcharts. Let's continue the same topic and let's learn to write some of the flowcharts. Let me tell you what exactly is a flowchart. A flowchart is a diagrammatical representation of an algorithm or a program. Algorithm, by this time you know how to write different types of algorithms. In algorithms you do write different steps, but in flowchart the same steps will be represented using the symbols, or rather I would say a geometrical symbol such as ellipse, rectangle, parallelogram, rhombus, hexagon. Let us have a look as to the different symbols which are used to write a flowchart. The first is the ellipse, which is used to write the start and stop operation. Then we have the parallelogram. Parallelogram, it represents the input and the output operation. Then we have a rectangle. A rectangle, it represents the processing part of the algorithm or a program. What do we mean by the processing? Processing generally means any calculations, any assignments, and that will be under the processing part, and that is represented using a rectangle. Then we have a rhombus. A rhombus, it is used for decision making. As of now, don't get confused with decision making. I'll be explaining in detail decision making and iteration. We will have different classes for this. That time I will explain you in detail what is decision making and the iteration. Hexagon we are using to represent the iterative statements or the repetitive statements. As you can see, we have started the flowchart and I'm running out of space, the shortage of space to continue. So what do? I will continue my flowchart in the next page. So to continue, we have to use a connector. So this is the connector which will be helping us to connect our flowchart from one place to another place. Then we have four directional keys. So you can see here four direction: up arrow, down arrow, left and right, and these represents flow of control. So they represent flow of control, how the execution flows, and that is represented by these four directional keys. So hope you have now, as if till now you are familiar with the symbols what we are using and why we are using. Let me repeat again: start and stop indicated by ellipse, input output indicated by parallelogram, any calculations rectangle, and any decision making that will be discussed later on, that is we are using rhombus, and then hexagon for the iteration process, and then connector if we are running out of, if you want to continue our flowchart in the next page, then we will be using that. And these are the four directional keys which represents the flow of control. So let's write an algorithm, or let's write, first we will write a flow chart to find sum of two numbers. Let me recall the first algorithm what we wrote was finding sum of two numbers. Kindly recall that, as I told you, when you are attending problem solving methodology class, kindly make sure you write down what has been taught. Kindly come with a notebook and a pen. Please copy all the steps. Then only you will learn, otherwise you will not be able to follow, because all topics has a continuity. And if you don't attend the class regularly and if you don't write down the things, and it will be very difficult for you to continue. So let us write the first flowchart, that to find sum of two numbers. Let's write a flowchart to find sum of two numbers. How to find sum of two numbers? So finding sum is nothing but adding two numbers. And to add two numbers, first we require two numbers. We start the process. Kindly recall the algorithm. So in algorithm we had written step 1, start. Step 2, we have to accept two numbers. That is, we have to read the two numbers. Assume the first number is A and the second number is B. A can take any value and B can also take any value. So step 3, we have to compute sum. So what do you mean by computing sum? Computing sum is nothing but adding. So you will get sum only after adding the given two numbers. So let's add the two numbers which we have accepted. So the accepted numbers are A and B. So we have added A and B and we have stored the result in C. Now we have to output. The next step is to print sum or output sum. As we know that the calculated sum is available in C, so we shall print the value which is stored in C. And the next step is stop. So hope you recall the algorithm what we have studied. Only if you know algorithm, then you will be able to write flowchart. If you don't know algorithm, you will not be able to write flowchart. Let's convert this algorithm to flowchart. Let's get started with step 1. Step 1 is start. As I told you, ellipse is used to represent start and stop operations. So step 1 is start, and start will be represented using ellipse. Step 2 is accept two numbers, input A and B. Accept or input, both are same. So I told you accept, input, read. All this represents input operation. Write output, print. Write, output, print. All this represents output operation. Either you can use write, print or output. All are same. So all represents output operation. Read, accept, input. These represents the input operation. So here we have accept. Accept is nothing but input. So as I told earlier, parallelogram is used to input. A parallelogram is used to input the data. So let's represent step 2. That is step 2 is read. Okay, you need not write this statement which is in the bracket. So only you concentrate on this while writing the flowchart. That's enough. Even if you write, no problem, but you can ignore that. You can skip. You can skip writing the statement which is in the square brackets. You can directly write the steps. If you wish to write, you can write. Not a problem. So step 2. Step 2 is read A comma B. So we are inputting so read A comma B. That is step 2. Step 3 is compute. Compute is nothing but calculate. Calculation, as I told earlier, calculation comes under processing. So let's write a processing statement. That is, the processing statement is represented using a rectangle. So C is equal to A plus B. So now we have found the sum and the sum is available in C. C has the result or the sum. Now, after computing, the next step is to output the result. As I told earlier, output, print, write. All these three represents the output statement. If there is any output statement in the algorithm, that will be represented using a parallelogram. So let's write a parallelogram to print the sum. The next step is stop. As we know that ellipse can be used to represent the stop operation. As we know that step 1 is followed by step 2. Step 2 is followed by step 3. So to represent the flow of control, we will be using arrow keys. So this is a flowchart to find sum of two numbers. Kindly go through and make a note of this flowchart. So kindly copy the flowchart what has been written. That is a flowchart to find sum of two numbers. As you can compare, once you write the flowchart algorithm and the same can be easily converted to flowchart. So I told in the previous classes to practice algorithms well, because only when you know algorithms, then it is easy for you to convert it to flowcharts. Now let's continue writing the flowchart to find the area of a triangle when base and height is given. As we know that the area of triangle when sides are given it is different. When base and height is given it is different. First let us write the algorithm to find algorithm and flowchart to find the area of a triangle given base and height. You need not, there is no compulsion that when a flowchart is asked, you need to write algorithm. But it's better if you write algorithm and then write flowchart so that it is easy to trace. You can easily trace the steps. Therefore, I always advise you to first write the algorithm and the same you convert to flowchart. So let's write an flowchart to find area of triangle given base and height. So here to find area of triangle given base and height. So let's get started and first let us write the algorithm. Accept. We need to accept two numbers, right? No. So we have to accept base and height. So previous algorithm requires two numbers. Why? Because we need to find the sum. But here we need to calculate area of triangle. Therefore we require base and height, not two numbers. So we need to accept base and height, without which we will not be able to calculate area. So without knowing base and height, we will not be able to calculate area. Therefore, it is required to to accept base and height. So let us accept. In step 2, we need to accept base and height. So I am assuming B as base, H as height. It is up to you. However you want. Whatever names you want, you can take. If you want to take BAAC, you can. The height, if you want to take HEIGST, you can. But make sure that throughout the process, you use the same names. I always advise my students to take short names. So because we will be using the names many a times. If you are using long names, every time you have to use the same name and lot of time is required for that. So kindly use small names. So like here I have used B and H. That's more than enough. So when we have B and H, base and height, so we can calculate area. So the area of triangle when given base and height is half into base into height. So area is half into base into height. Half into base into height. So once we have calculated the area, now we can calculate, now we can print the area. Stop. So start accept base and height, read B and H, compute area. So area is equal to half into base into height. Then stop. Fine everybody? So this is the algorithm. Let's write the same algorithm to a flowchart. Let's convert the algorithm to the flowchart. Step 1 is start. Step 2 is accept base and height. So step 2 is we are accepting base and height. Step 2 is accept or read base and height. Then step 3 is compute. Compute is calculate. Calculation is represented using rectangle. So what are we calculating? We are calculating area. So AR is equal to half BH. Half into base into height. The next step is output area, print area. For printing, we use a parallelogram. So print, we are printing area. The next step is stop. So stop is represented using a parallelogram. As compared to the previous flowchart, this flowchart also has 5 steps because both the algorithms has 5 steps. If step varies in the algorithm, definitely the steps in the flowcharts also varies. Hope you have understood this. Kindly copy down, kindly write down. There will be a Zoom meeting where I will be explaining some of the topics, and also kindly log in and you can clarify any doubts if you have. Any doubts regarding the topic can be clarified in the Zoom meeting. So very easy to convert an algorithm to a flowchart. But without an algorithm, it's very difficult. So first practice to write an algorithm, and the same you can easily translate to a flowchart. Like you can see here, step 1 start. Start is an ellipse. Step 2 read. Read is input. So to input we are using a parallelogram. Then step 3 is compute. Compute, as I told, calculation. Calculation is represented using a parallelogram. Calculation is represented using a rectangle that we have done here. The next step is print. Print is outputting. So we are outputting. Outputting is printing the data. So when you are printing the data, you use a parallelogram. So we use a parallelogram. Then we have stop. So stop, we use again a ellipse. Hope you have understood this and start practicing this by writing again and again, 3 times, 5 times. When you write it again and again, when you make a habit of writing, then you will understand and also you will find easy to remember. Let's write an algorithm for, say, finding the area and circumference of a circle. So let's get started and write the algorithm and a flowchart to find area and circumference of a circle. So the question will be asked to write a flowchart. You did not write algorithm, but still I advise you to make a practice of writing algorithm along with the flowchart so that you will learn algorithm as well as flowchart. So let's write an flowchart to find area and circumference of a circle. First, let's write the algorithm and we shall convert the same to the flowchart. So step 1 is always start. Step 1 is always start. Step 2, as we know that to calculate area and circumference of a circle, radius is required. Let's accept radius.